Hello everyone and welcome. In this video we're going to be reviewing Season 1 of Peacemaker. Now, Peacemaker was created and directed by James Gunn. It was produced by the Safran Company, Troll Court Entertainment, and Warner Bros. Television. The show itself is distributed by Warner Media Direct and is streamable on HBO Max. A little more on the director, James Gunn. He's had a lengthy and talented career comprising of many famous titles, including Marvel's The Guardians of the Galaxy, DC Comics' The Suicide Squad of 2021, Scooby-Doo, and Dawn of the Dead. Pretty decent and somewhat successful career, I might say. Now that we're done with all the boring stuff, I can talk about the characters in the show Peacemaker and then the plot of Season 1. First, we have Peacemaker, who's a DC comic superhero who stars in the show of the same name. If I recall correctly, his character only appears briefly in the comics, but is liked enough to warrant a spin-off, which, interestingly enough, is what happened to the character in 2021's The Suicide Squad. His character in the comics is a part of a superhero group and is liked enough to grant or warrant a spin-off, which happened to his character again in 2021's The Suicide Squad. But the comics in which he had his own spin-off didn't last very long, which some may perceive as a bad omen to what's happening to this character in this TV show series. So a little bit more on the character. He's a pacifist diplomat who only uses his alter ego Peacemaker to get things done or push the envelope by using non-lethal to lethal methods to get his means. Hilariously, he's famous for saying he doesn't care how many men, women, and children he has to kill in order to get peace. I know that is comedically paradoxical, but unfortunately that is as far as the humor goes for his character and the show. His character is just very contradictory. Peacemaker in the show is played by the talented Cena, who I hear has recently been accepted in the William Morris Endeavor Acting Agency, which, if you didn't know, is a global premier talent agency, so good for him. That's pretty much it for his character. Moving on. Next up, we have the band of secret agents that work with Peacemaker in order to keep him in line. First up, we have Leota Adebayo's character, which is a super weird name, and she's played by Danielle Brooks. Her character is very sweet and very nice. I think Ms. Brooks does a great job with the material she's given, but nothing much after that. Her LGBTQ presence is nothing more of an annoying forced distraction that does nothing for the show or her character or anything else really. Next up, we have Jennifer Holland, who plays Amelia Harcourt, who's supposed to be some sort of cold-hearted character and badass agent who's somehow supposed to be likable and super sweet at the same time. That's another contradiction you're going to see in the show. You might hear me say that word dozens of times throughout this video when describing the characters of the show and what the show is ultimately about and what it puts out. So sure, that can be executed, if done well. You can have a character that's like cold-hearted and like ruthless, and then in very small moments show how that they actually have a heart, but this show fails to execute that efficiently and effectively. When that does happen, it adds a lot of complexity to the character, but of course this show seems to fail to hit that mark. It is Season 1, so we're hoping for the better, but that's how it's looking right now. Not to mention James Gunn, who's her husband in real life, has mentioned in an interview that he wanted her character to have somewhat of a love relationship with John Cena's character, but also not wanting that either. What's up with all this contradiction? That's not what makes a show or a character strong or entertaining. It makes decision-making unpredictable and doesn't really add to the character or show's development in any way. Her character does a very nice job of her choreographed fights, and she's damn gorgeous, so she gets a pass. Moving on. Next up, we have Steve Agee, who plays John Economos, who's some sort of computer nerd who works well with computers, but that's as far as it goes. He's a one-dimensional, just computer guy who was like a sweaty nerd in the van. He's just a computer guy. His name's Economos, which is dangerously close to the word economics or economical, which is pretty weird because, these people are used to using their limited resources to the best of their ability, which is something he doesn't do at all. He often makes mistakes and has to correct them. He displays his skills by being able to correct them, but why are you making mistakes in the first place? Contradictions! Next up, we have Freddy Stroma's character, who's called Vigilante, and if you guessed it, he plays a vigilante who has no real superpowers of any kind. He just uses guns to defeat bad guys and drug dealers. Pretty admirable. What he has in admirability is totally destroyed by his complete, unfunny, annoying appearance in the show. I know TVs have that comedic relief character, but that's fine, but where it becomes a problem is he's unfunny. He's annoying as hell. He tries to be funny way too often, gets in the character's way, and he doesn't progress the plot in any way. He often makes mistakes. Sometimes he assists in their, I guess, missions and whatnot, but for the most part, all the comedy falls flat on his end. You know, it distracts from the viewer's ability to, I don't know, enjoy the show. The other issue, and it doesn't really lie on him, is that every character is fighting for the comedic person relief limelight. So you know, it's hard to take someone to take their like efforts as funny when everyone is trying to be funny and it comes out to barely being funny. And he tries way too hard on it. I don't want to be too negative on him or the character, so I'm just going to leave it at that. It's just very annoying. So that's it for the main characters, to name a few. There are some others, but they don't get large amounts of dialogue throughout the show. I'm going to go ahead and summarize the plot, and we'll go ahead and cover the choreographing, the editing, writing, etc. So the plot, as mentioned earlier, follows the events of the Suicide Squad's 2021, in which John Cena's character gets injured. We find him recovering in a hospital is when the show starts. He escapes the hospital only to shortly after be apprehended by the agents I just listed off. They find him because of the GPS chip implanted in his brain that is set to detonate and explode at the agent's whim. Reluctantly, but obviously, he agrees to work with them to avoid death. They withhold information about why they're killing, who they're killing, right up until near the end of the season. And, oh, spoiler alert, if you're interested in watching, it's okay. I mean, if you really want to watch it, but spoiler alert, this is your warning. We go ahead and see that the people he's targeting, the people he's assassinating, are a group of aliens that have actually inhabited or like taken over these human hosts, and their plan is to make food and take over the world, something like that, something generic as hell like that. So that's the show in a very simplified and concise, condensed way. In terms of cinematography, it's pretty decent. You know, the camera work is nice, especially in the fight scenes. Things work together to make nice action scenes. Like, I know I might not sound like I'm giving the show the best praise, and I'm not really. It's not really that great a show. I'm like letting you guys know it's definitely passable, but it is entertaining. I can definitely see people in the comments or other people who do see the show and they're like, what? I'm chuckling throughout. The fight scenes are awesome. Look, if you're a Marvel fanatic and you love DC Comics and all that stuff, and you love fighting and action and superheroes, of course that's going to be entertaining to you. But as a story, as progression, as generic as it is, it becomes tiresome, boring, and uninteresting to watch after a while. But more on that later. We'll talk about the camera work a little bit more. Moving on. So the camera work is good in the sense that it follows the characters nicely. There aren't any beautiful shots like overseeing fantastic landscapes or like really awesome transitions. What's next is the animation. It's pretty decent. I know it's only season 1. They might get more funding to make that CGI and all those action scenes a lot more better. But I think the worst part of the CGI occurred when Peacemaker's dad, who's a Nazi of some kind, he's a Nazi superhero known as White Dragon, which I think is a really weird name for a Nazi, considering like dragon is kind of like Asian history and whatnot. Like that's how, I don't know, to me that's what it comes off as. It's like he's a white supremacist who has like Asian roots or something like that. Just totally weird to me. Never appreciated his character. Don't think it's serious or edgy in any way. But anyways, there's a scene where his character takes flight and is like having action scenes with the main character Peacemaker, and the CGI is just not really that good. I didn't appreciate it. That's pretty much the only time the CGI is like really bad. Other than that, carries on very decently throughout the show, so good for them. So we covered the cinematography, the CGI, choreography, practical effects, and editing, which it has good pacing to bring up suspense, but now comes the writing and pacing. The pacing is decent. It does a good job of building up suspense to the next big thing, but for me the writing and plot development is just so weak and very generic, very boring. I am looking forward to season 2 in hopes that it gets better, but if not, I'm definitely not going to keep watching. Where it gets worse is that it's so contradictory. All like Peacemaker's character, he's a pacifist, but he kills people. He has trouble, like, you know, his backstory entails him hurting a family member, and so he doesn't want to use his fists anymore. He doesn't want to be dangerous or a superhero, but that's what he is. He's a superhero, and he goes out and completes these missions anyways. Of course, we're going to see more character development throughout. I mean, I hope, but just seeing that is boring, and I don't know how you say, like, I don't want to keep saying contradictory, man. It's just, like, what? It's like a giraffe that doesn't want to be a giraffe. Like a giraffe wants to be short for some reason, so it hangs his neck down. And you're just like, what am I watching? What am I looking at? You know, it's really odd. Not to mention the characters are so easily predictable. We haven't gone in depth into all their backstories, but they're all so predictable. You can just like insert generic backstory to Harcourt or Adebayo or Economos. Like he's a nerd, so he probably got bullied, but he works hard. Harcourt probably got abused or is used a lot, and that's why she's really tough and doesn't really take shit from anyone, etc. Adebayo seems like just a goofy person, sweet and whatnot. But it's just not a lot of room for character growth that I can see that's like mind-blowing. Just really, really generic, I think. If I can take a break from using the word contradictory, just generic comes into mind immediately after. Going back to Vigilante's character, he's the most annoying character ever. The only time when he's truly funny and will produce like audible laughs from me is when he interacts with John Cena. And even then, it's because he's yelling at him for how stupid and annoying he is as a person and character. Go figure. You know, when all that's said and done, I'm still looking forward for season 2. Hopefully it gets better. If it maintains or falters in season 2, I'll likely stop watching altogether. It's not something I recommend. If you guys want to check it out, go ahead. That is, of course, if you have nothing else going on for you. Otherwise, you can skip this series and find something else to watch. The reason I made this video wasn't to be completely negative. I kind of wanted to show you guys that not all my movie reviews are positive. I'm not just going to say everything's awesome all the time. I want to show you guys I have the ability to critique shows for reasons that make them suck or unentertaining. What kind of also helped me make this video was that I started reading reviews on this show, and I started reading the negative reviews, and I found that I agreed with them way more than I agreed with the positive reviews because they were very generic. Oh, the show's awesome, it's entertaining, some of the characters are super funny, the action scenes are cool. Okay, so what? What am I watching, really? It's a TV series. It's a black comedy, so it's not going to be that serious. There should be some character development and stuff like that. Again, I know it's season 1, so there's more room to grow, but again, this is a review on season 1, and so far, not so good. Thanks for watching, guys. I really appreciate all of you. You're the best. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. That's going to be it for this video. Thank you, and take care.